By the way, YouTube, the word is disingenuous, not disingenuine. I couldn't tell you how many times I have heard that non-word, disingenuine. Hey there, I'm back and I'm very blonde. I know I've been gone for a while in terms of my regular content, and I want to thank you guys so much for being so patient. A lot's been going on in my life, not just personally and around quarantine and work, but my online life as well. So if you know, you know. Maybe hang around to the end and we'll talk about it a little bit more. If you don't know, you're probably better off that way. But I do want to thank you guys so much for being patient and allowing me the time that I've needed to kind of just navigate everything. But also, funnily enough, this is almost embarrassing, but it's not my life. So I don't know how embarrassing this truly is for me. But this part 4 of Trisha Paytas' History of Scandals and Controversies was meant to focus on the year 2019. And we knew going into this that 2019 and 2020 would be very busy years. I didn't realize that 2019 was going to take up so much time. I realized that there is no way that I'm going to be able to cover 2019 in any reasonable time frame, or even a time frame that I could probably upload to YouTube. So I'm just here to say that I will be cutting 2019 in half, essentially. I'm not exactly sure at which point I'm going to have to cut this video. I'm going to try to end it at where a certain topic ends. But if not, there may be a cliffhanger. My hope is to get the next part, the second half of 2019 up next week. So we're looking at 2019 covering parts 4 and 5 of this series. So again, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and roll the video. And like I said, if you want to know a little bit more about stuff, hang around to the end and I'll see you there. Hey there. Did I make you wait long enough to get to part 4 of Trisha Paytas' History of Scandals and Controversies, which is expected to be 5 parts or beyond? Thank you so much for being so patient while I took some time off and made some changes. We may talk shop at the end of the video to talk about what's going on, what's been going on in my life and around my channel. So I'll let you guys know right here whether or not that happens. But if so, wait till the end. We'll talk amongst ourselves. So, we have been chronicling the scandals and controversies of the career of Trisha Paytas over the course of her YouTube career. So, since we are already 4 parts deep, I'm going to make this intro as quick as possible, especially because this is the 3rd time I'm filming this, and I know that this part is going to be a long one. That's what my girlfriend said in the park. So if you haven't watched parts 1 through 3, you might want to go back and watch those, maybe not, who knows. But in part 1, we covered what we called Trisha's early career on YouTube, but it really spanned the years of 2008 to 2015. And then we found 2016 to be a very problematic year for Trisha, so that got its own part in part 2. Part 3, we covered 2017 and 2018, which were moderately dramatic years for her. And now here we are at part 4, where we will be covering 2019 on its own, as we know that this year and last have been a couple of doozies for Trisha and the YouTube community. I will warn you though 2019 was a very dramatic year for Trisha, she did receive a good bit more of support than she typically got or gets. And I will talk a little bit more towards the end about why I think that is. But just know that not in every situation, but in many situations, Trisha did receive a little bit more support from the general public. Like I've said before, if you know of some sort of scandal or controversy that I haven't covered and we've already gone through that time frame, please feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram or Twitter. If you've already sent me one of these stories in DMs, if you wouldn't mind, please follow up with me, just because I've been keeping those unread so that I don't lose track of them. And now I'm learning that Instagram deletes unread DMs after 4 weeks. So if you wouldn't mind, following up with me so that I can catch those stories and connect with you. We may or may not use those stories in an additional part to cover some lesser known stories. Again, that's kind of up in the air. We'll see how that goes. If I tell you to put a pin in this, that just means take note of this behavior, because we will be revisiting this sort of behavior or something like it later, whether it be in another part or this part. And lastly, but most importantly, yes, this is a commentary channel where I criticize YouTubers and public figures. I don't discourage criticism and disagreement in my comments, but I do have a zero tolerance policy for hate. So no sending hate, whether that be to Trisha, to anyone else involved in these stories, to me, or to each other. Just don't be hateful, don't be nasty. It's not cute. Intelligent communication is sexy. So we left off on part 3 in February of 2019 when Trisha Paytas released a video that would dismantle her relationship not only with Jason Nash, but with David Dobrik and the Vlog Squad in a video called Why David Dobrik is a Horrible Human Being. But in that video, just to recap, she really laid in to people around Jason. She didn't say a lot to really expose David or really incriminate him in any way, but she did speak very poorly of Jason's ex-wife, which everybody agrees, including Trisha, that was very distasteful and not her place. But she did expose Brandon Calvillo for dating a 17-year-old girl when he was around the age of 23 or 24. Which I found interesting.
Is Brandon good at sex?
Honestly, yeah.
Hell yeah, Brandon. What's up?
I'm not.
And we do talk a little bit more about that on my channel. So again, stay to the end. We'll talk a little bit more about how that comes up. So in terms of fallout from this video, we saw in the beginning, in those first couple of days, some people trying to do damage control. From what we know of the Vlog Squad, they tend to stay out of drama or not address drama if it doesn't need to be. If there's a serious scandal that is offensive to groups of people, they will typically address things like that. But drama with other YouTubers, they tend to not address, kind of just turn a blind eye, and it seems to work for them. But we saw two couples, Jason and Trisha, as well as Brandon and Lacey, take to YouTube to make videos to kind of clear their names, rectify the situation, do damage control, and it didn't work. Both couples took down those videos pretty shortly thereafter.
I'm really sorry to Trisha. It was a mistake, a big mistake, and it won't happen again.
And I am sorry for putting out the video, but I'm mostly sorry to like people in your private life that I put on like blast. I'm sorry. I don't think those things.
About a year ago, I created an account on this app called Bumble, where you can kind of meet new people and meet up with them and chat with them. And on my profile, it said I was 18 years old, and at the time I was 17. I ended up matching with Brandon, and we started talking, and immediately just clicked.
And from what we saw from some vlogs that Trisha posted to her channel this year, actually, as well as the story she's told us, she and Jason continued to try to work on their relationship in those few days afterward. And 3 days after that video was released on February 5th is when he really decided to call quits on their relationship. And it was also this day that she was admitted to the hospital on a 5150 hold, which, if you need some more clarification around that, that is a mandatory psychiatric hold in which a person presents themselves to be a danger to themselves or others, and thus are required to be held in a psych ward, for lack of a better term. And the reason this came to be, according to Trisha, is that after she made that video and posted it, she was really going through a lot of anxiety, I guess, around the situation, but also at the prospect of losing her boyfriend she loved so much. She was experiencing a lot of anxiety. She's told us in the past about a problem with prescription pills. And from what she's told us, this problem kind of resurfaced. So she was using these prescription pills to self-medicate her anxiety as well as drinking alcohol. And so this combination was deemed an accidental attempted suicide. In addition, Trisha did say, I believe to Jason, but she did say to somebody that she did not want to live. So whether each of these things on its own or these things coupled together, this did qualify her for that 5150 hold. So Trisha was in the hospital in the psychiatric ward. It was a 72-hour hold, but she was released after 48 hours, I guess, after the doctor assessed her and determined that she was not a danger to herself or others. Now, whether or not he was the one who, I'm not sure who called 911 for Trisha, but we do know that Jason was there at the hospital with her when she was in the emergency room, as well as bringing her kind of her psych ward bag filled with clothes to wear, as well as other comfort items like blankets. But Jason was there in the hospital. I'm not sure if David was there as well, but we know that Jeff Wittek was there. I guess the guys were maybe out shooting and kind of just went straight to the hospital to be there for Trisha. Or so Jason could be there for Trisha, really. So we know that at this time, Jason was very supportive of Trisha, of her getting the help she needed and getting through this time and really kind of making this as easy as possible for her. Like I mentioned, he did bring her supplies as well as a letter expressing who knows what. We just know that the contents brought comfort to Trisha while she was there in the hospital. He also was her go-to person when it came to making phone calls from the hospital. And then after she left the hospital, they did continue to hang out for about 3 months until Trisha's birthday is what she's told us. So we'll get to that in a minute. But between early February and early May, we really didn't see Trisha and Jason together on camera. From what we've learned, they were really kind of hanging out in private, in secret, even to the point that Trisha talks about having to park her car halfway down the street so that Jason's friends wouldn't know that he was spending time with Trisha. Now, why this ended on or around her birthday, I'm not sure. I looked into this. I looked into what happened on her birthday or at her birthday party, and there was some drama, but it really wasn't drama that involved like other YouTubers. It was really just a really bad experience Trisha had with this venue, with the business, really. So I didn't see any ties to the story of Trisha and Jason to that event. So if any of you know why Jason decided to sever ties and communication with Trisha on or around her birthday, please let us know in the comments, shoot me a DM, what have you. Very curious. Now, May of 2019 was a very busy time in Trisha Paytas drama. So shortly after her birthday, on May 10th, Trisha got into it with Ethan and Hila Klein from H3 Productions, H3 Productions, H3 Podcast, whatever you want to call them, H3. Mostly with Ethan, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this might have been their first beef, and then it was just kind of a rocky year after that in terms of Trisha's relationship with the Kleins. So at that time, Ethan put out a video on the H3 channel called Instagram versus Reality. I believe that was the title.
Ethan recently put out a popular video called Instagram versus Reality, and in it he comments on and seemingly goes after people who look like pristine, perfect on Instagram, and then another photo where sometimes it's just another angle or like a candid from when they were taking that other perfect photo, and then the thumbnail of the video, Trisha Paytas.
Yes! This girl is the spokesman of Instagram Reality. Why are you even a model if you're gonna modify your looks that much? It's like from beauty queen to WWF wrestler in 2 seconds. You cannot Photoshop your heart and soul. Remember that. This girl tried to use a face filter on Instagram and her phone blew up. Here's another one of her. She is the best. Isn't she not the best? Would people even recognize her if they saw her on the street? I mean, she is unrecognizable. This is Coachella versus throwing down in the McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m. This is Coachella versus World Star Hip Hop. No! That cannot be the same person. Dude, Coachella versus Open Casket Funeral.
And from the title, you can guess really what the message was meant to be. Ethan's aim with the video was really to showcase what women, really, I would say people, but I think it was just women, what women looked like in their posed photos for social media compared to candids, whether they were taken at a different time or within that same day. And really, he wanted to showcase this in a way that shows his viewers how unrealistic it is to compare themselves to these people, to these women in their before shots. To essentially say, if you don't look like this, don't worry because these people don't even look like this. Is really what he was getting at, which is a great message. Honestly, if I were to watch that video with the sound turned off and just looked at those photos, those before and after shots, I think that would have given me a lot of perspective and probably put a good message into my mind anyway. Curious to hear what you guys think, but Ethan's delivery was lacking and he did upset a few people, Trisha Paytas being one of them, namely Trisha Paytas in terms of who was the most outspoken. He did get some flack from other creators like Anthony Padilla.
There were people that were angry. You had some general people, you had some social people who aren't featured in the video like Anthony Padilla. He started by saying, I love the overall message in your video. You don't have to Photoshop yourself to feel good and Instagram models are giving us unrealistic body expectations. But then adding, but saying the unedited photos of these women look like manatees, Twinkies, and other insults seems to go against that positive message. What was your reasoning for including that? Ethan eventually responding, comedy, which another creator by the name of Siren Micah responded, comedy shouldn't be used to bring other people down, which Ethan responded, can you email me the comedy handbook? I will review the rules and adhere to its guidelines. And then of course a very big reaction came from Trisha Paytas. She went on a Twitter spree at first, calling Ethan a disgusting piece of shit, calling the video not only predatory but also harmful to young girls, adding you're using photos of different days to make your quote point. She calls the video trash, bullying. She then contacts Ethan's wife, Hila, saying, please, Hila Klein, do not raise your child to be as ignorant as your husband. I would divorce him ASAP, adding that you stand by him is even more disgusting, telling Ethan she was suicidal at age 13, 15, 19, 22, and 25 over comments like the ones Ethan makes. Ethan then responded to the tweet saying that Hila should divorce him, saying, who is this rude person? I don't recognize her from her profile picture. Anyone know? Trisha also posted an almost 19-minute video to YouTube.
And why? Why was this video a problem? Well, it was Ethan's choice of words when he was showing these before and after photos. I'm not sure the name of the person he referred to in this instance. I'm not sure if I even know who it was. There was one picture of a woman, a before photo, where she looked very fit, curvy in all the right places in terms of what media tells us are all the right places. And then compared to her candid shot, he referred to her as a beached whale. And then it didn't stop there. Photos of Tana Mojo, he went from comparing her to a mermaid to then comparing her to a manatee. And with Trisha, he showed a few before and after shots and made a few jabs at her looks. He did say that she went from, I think, beauty queen to WWF wrestler, Coachella to this. I may roll right here the different terms he compared her to. And Trisha was pissed. In her opinion, this was very damaging to women and their self-esteem. She took to Twitter, she went off, she made a couple of attacks at Hila, or what people feel were attacks at Hila. So of course, where Trisha probably did have a leg to stand on, took it too far. This is Trisha. We know how she works, especially when she gets mad and takes to Twitter. But I will say that I agree with the sentiment. Not the sentiment that Hila should leave her husband and all that, but just that this rhetoric is damaging. You know, like I said, if I had just seen these photos before and after, if I had seen these photos and heard something like, this is unrealistic and this is what real bodies look like, or something like that, it would have done me a lot of good. But instead, we see these real bodies, what your average people actually look like in swimsuits. I don't even think it's fair to say average people. It's what thinner people look like in candid shots. And now they're being compared to beached whales and manatees. I think for a lot of women, they looked at those photos and said, you know, either, hey, that's what my body looks like, or my body isn't even that fit or that thin or that toned. So what does that say about me if these are beached whales and manatees? So I really think Ethan should have done a take 2 with that video and chosen different words. Yes, I get that he's a comedy channel. He is a funny guy. He could have gotten this message across without it being at the expense of not only the self-esteem of the women in the video, but really people all across his audience. So I expect better of you, Ethan. I really like you. I do like the guy, but this wasn't it for me. And it wasn't it for Trisha Paytas either, apparently. So, right after that happened, still in May of 2019, Trisha Paytas got into some drama with mukbang YouTuber Nikocado Avocado. And at that time, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't very widely known. I think he was pretty popular in the mukbang community, but in terms of the mainstream YouTube community, I don't think he was very well known. Now we know a good bit about him and his character. And all of that, and a lot of us have our opinions about him. But at that time, he was relatively unknown. And he posted a video to YouTube. I don't remember the title, but I'll put it here, where he shared his story where Trisha Paytas really betrayed, and you know how YouTubers love to use this word, manipulated him. Now, I want you to put a pin in this, and this pin we're going to revisit very, very soon. But he told us this story about something that happened a few years prior, that started a few years prior. And what brought it up for him at this time was that his husband, Orlin, for Nick's birthday, bought a cameo from Trisha Paytas. And in the cameo, he asked her to address some things like what she likes about Nick, what she doesn't like about him. Nick, in the beginning of the video, shows us that cameo that he received, and it's very uncomfortable how the video starts.
This is my Nikocado Avocado. Okay, I see that. You know, your hubby Orlin be booking this, but okay, I'm gonna be real, okay? You mean he got a cameo and everything, like, okay. He wants the tea. He wanted me to tell you what I love and what I don't love about you. Well, I don't know what happened a couple years ago. Something happened where I don't know if
we have to talk.
It's very awkward, kind of sarcastic and dismissive, like, ugh. Very much, I don't want to be here kind of vibes from Trisha Paytas. But she does kind of go on through the video, and by the end is a lot more complimentary. She does say some nice things about Nick and Orlin as well. But according to Nick, he felt that those sentiments were disingenuous. By the way, YouTube, the word is disingenuous, not disingenuine. I couldn't tell you how many times I have heard that non-word, disingenuine. So what happened that made things so uncomfortable and so awkward between Trisha and Nick? Well, a few years prior, Trisha hosted some sort of sweepstakes or contest on her channel, and the winner would be picked based on some sort of cover or recreation of the song she had just released, Warrior. Nick posted a cover of that song on the violin, which he played beautifully. It was beautiful. It was a Trisha Paytas song, but it was beautiful nonetheless. He did a really fantastic job and clearly is very talented, at least in one area of his being. And in the comments of that video, Trisha really gushed about how much she loved it. She said in her comment that she had been a fan for a while, that there's just something to him, and that she really wanted to get together with him and collab. So, of course, being a huge Trisha Paytas stan, Nick jumped at the opportunity and the essential invitation to collab. And it should be noted that at the time, I'm not sure if this is still the case, but at the time, he was living in Colombia Australia with his husband, but needed to travel to the States occasionally to reinstate his visa. And that time was coming up. So he figured he would just kind of knock out a few birds with one stone by making a trip to LA to collaborate with Trisha, a few other creators, and, like I said, reinstate that visa. So he talked to Trisha in DMs to kind of coordinate the best day for this, and they did agree upon a day that they would get together and do a couple of collabs they talked about. Trisha seemed very excited. She was the one who offered, these days and times. It looked, by all intents and purposes, all intents and purposes, not intensive purposes, that she was going to follow through and collab with Nikocado Avocado. But this is Trisha. So as time got closer to this day they were supposed to collab, Nick had bought his ticket to LA, had, made his travel arrangements. He was updating Trisha to get a little bit more information about what to do. As time got closer, he wasn't getting any response from her. And when he was there in LA, on the day they were supposed to collab, he was messaging her, was not getting a response. Trisha had gone ghost on him. Later, he did send her a long message, essentially asking for some closure as to why she stopped responding to him, why she didn't collab with him, and he never got a response. So he says that he was quiet about this for some time, but because Trisha continued to bring his name up on various live streams and an interview with some guy. I don't know his name, nor do I care to. Some of you guys might know his name. I don't, so I'm just going to call him No Name. She did this interview with No Name and some other live streams where she talked about Nikocado Avocado. She did say some things that were not that great, that she didn't care for his personality or for him. And in Nick's video, we see a clip of Trisha in her interview with No Name saying something about Nicocado and all these other YouTubers getting fat. And the reason Nick showed that was to showcase, he said, she's been obsessed or fascinated, something like that, with me and my weight, while claiming that she didn't know who he was or was not aware of him before this cover of her song. And that much she did say. She said she didn't know of him before that cover. However, we remember in the comments, she did say that not only had she been a fan for a while, but she said something about how excited she was when this video came up in her subscriptions. So she was already subscribed to Nick at this point before the cover was posted. So we do know that there was at least a lie in there. But, and this is where we revisit that pin.
I've heard her talk shit about me in her YouTube videos, on her You Now. She made multiple live streams implying that I was a crazy obsessed fan and
his weight gain, Nicocado Avocado. Nicocado gaining weight, all these people fucking being fat.
When we see the full clip of this interview with No Name, Trisha does mention Nick's name and his weight, but she was actually going to bat for Nick and the other YouTubers that this guy was criticizing.
You really think I hate fat people? Like, you really believe that?
Yes, all you do is make fun of people's weight.
No, I don't.
You always talk about, Nicocado gaining weight, all these people fucking being fat.
Well, I do think Nicocado is gaining weight for views. I've said that.
Why does it matter?
She seemed to be pretty offended on behalf of those other people, which is consistent with the body positive aspect of her brand. I will state that as something positive about her brand that has remained consistent. So, at first, yeah, I didn't see that full clip first. So I saw this video that Nikocado Avocado posted, and I was with just about everyone else who wasn't a Trisha stan. I was kind of pissed. Why did she ghost this guy? Why didn't she have the nerve to at least say that she wouldn't be able to follow through with their plans? It was bad form, in my opinion. And I waited to see if she would give an apology. Now, in terms of the way Nick clipped that interview, yeah, that's manipulation. You guys know I use that word sparingly. that's manipulation. So waiting around on some sort of apology or an address of some sort of what happened in this situation where she ghosted this guy. She did post this weird video where she apologized like this.
I want to apologize to Nikocado Avocado. I didn't give you a sincere apology at the time. I was going through a lot. And it wasn't an excuse. It was the truth.
And I remember at that time posting somewhere on social, like, is this the apology we've been waiting for? Nikocado Avocado deserves better. Now that I know a little bit more about him, even still, I think he deserved an explanation. She later says that she was really uncomfortable with him for a number of reasons and did not want to collaborate with him because on top of her discomfort with Nick, she also had other things going on in her personal life, as she always does. But she didn't feel that she owed anybody, not even an explanation, just any sort of message at all, any sort of cancellation or something. She didn't feel she owed him that. And then, of course, there was that weird apology. But she did come around and I guess own her part of this and really did apologize and make this up to Nick. And they became friends for a little while and they made a good handful of collabs together. So that kind of had a happy ending, though I don't think they're necessarily friends now. Now, I should note, because in the beginning of this video, I talked about Trisha receiving a lot of support during this time. Of course, in the Nikocado Avocado situation, that's not the best example, but we will start to see her getting a little bit more support in these coming stories. And I think it is important to note that by this time, May of 2019, Trisha was clean and sober for the most part. I say that because she slipped up a couple of times with alcohol, I think, maybe pills, I'm not sure. But she was mostly sober from that 5150 hold in February through, I want to say the summer of 2019. And during that time, really around spring and summer, we started to see Trisha kind of glow up a little bit. That's another term I've never used before, and I think I'm going to keep it that way. Anyway, Trisha was exercising a good bit. She was eating healthier. She looked and felt great, not necessarily because of any weight loss, just she looked healthier. She looked like she was taking care of herself. Her skin, her hair, everything looked so much better. She looked great. But on top of taking care of her body, she was going to therapy, I think, almost every day, which I remember at the time thinking, is that too much therapy? Which is not something I've ever said about anyone ever. But she seemed to be doing really, really well with the breakup and with her life in general. So I think a lot of us were kind of rallying around her at that time and hoping for the best, kind of rooting for her continuing on this journey to good health. At the risk of sounding cheesy, that's really what it seemed like she was on. So keeping that in mind. Oh, and I didn't mention with the whole Nicocado stuff, go ahead and put a pin in that because we will be revisiting something involving him briefly towards the end of this. But moving into August of 2019, Trisha gets into it with Jeff Wittek from the Vlog Squad. So what happened? Why Jeff? Well, Trisha went on the Zach Sang podcast, his show podcast, and talked a good bit about the Vlog Squad and her relationship and breakup with Jason. I do think it's important to note, and I want you guys to put a pin in this. She did say about David, and this does relate to her thoughts on Jeff, but she did say that David is the kind of person that cycles through friends.
He's on record saying that he treats his friends like a Twitter update.
Yeah.
And every few months, there's new friends in the group, and
yeah. Where's Josh Peck? Where's Gabby Hanna?
There's a life cycle over there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Hey guys, I told you to put a pin in this because I was planning on putting a clip in here from the November drama between Trisha Paytas and Gabby Hanna, where Trisha Paytas talks about the Vlog Squad and how David Dobrik is loyal AF. And that is the reason in talking about how bad Gabby Hanna must be to be cut out of his life. But that is no longer on the internet as far as I know of, so you can just take my word for it, or not. But I thought that was a little funny. And so these friends that are featured in his vlogs really are getting kind of their 15 minutes of fame, but that time is finite, short-lived, they will be replaced. She said this kind of in a way that seemed a little mean, but at the same time, she said that this is just the way things are on YouTube, that she's seen this happen even with Shane. So in a sense, she was just saying that it's kind of matter of fact. But in terms of what happened to bring this up, specifically regarding Jeff, is that she, I would say, ran into him in a Starbucks, but they really didn't run into each other. They were at a Starbucks at the same time and saw each other, apparently. She said she noticed him, and then when it was time to pick up his order, he was nowhere to be found, that his drink and his sandwich were just waiting there and he never picked it up. So she deduced from that situation that for whatever reason he was uncomfortable and left Starbucks. She said that she reached out to Jason concerned and asked, what did I do? Does Jeff hate me? He just left Starbucks without even picking up his order because I walked in. So at the time it didn't seem like she had that much animosity towards Jeff. It might have actually been in that interview where she talked about him having no talent, kind of referring to him as the new pretty boy in the Vlog Squad who otherwise doesn't serve any other purpose. Now, I've said this before, I like Jeff. I do think he can be funny. His sense of humor is a little bit off kilter, but otherwise not all that incredibly wide-reaching or sophisticated. Regardless, I kind of like the guy. I also think he queer-baited James Charles, which I talked about in the James Charles history. So I don't know. Moving along with the story. Now, we mentioned earlier that the Vlog Squad knows that what's best for them is not to address drama or at least smaller things or anything that hasn't gone public. Essentially anything that doesn't require being addressed. And Jeff broke that rule by talking about this whole situation on the podcast he shared with Scotty Sire at the time called Scottcast. And without naming Trisha's name, he talks about this story and how this YouTuber is going around telling this story about how he ran out of a Starbucks.
I don't respect that person. I'm not going to fake a handshake to avoid an awkward situation. I actually thrive on that awkwardness. And I like to make it more awkward, so maybe something will come out of it that I could make a big fucking joke out of, because I like that shit. I'm entertained by it. Now, I can't just go around assaulting everybody, because then I'd be in jail.
It almost sounds as if whether Trisha meant for it to be that way, or he took it that way, or somewhere in translation, him leaving that Starbucks looked kind of like a little bitch move. Maybe that's not the nicest way to put it. A cowardly move. And so I think Jeff really just kind of wanted to clear his name and kind of flex a little bit and puff out his chest. So he talked about this situation and he said that no, he wasn't going to say hello and shake her hand because she fucked over one of his friends. So I don't know which of his friends he's referring to there, whether that be David, Jason, Brandon. We don't know. I don't think it matters. But his reasoning for not saying hello or acknowledging her or leaving altogether is because he wanted to make things awkward. That's his way of dealing with that. This situation was already awkward, so he's going to make it more awkward. And that's how he gets back at someone. Jeff, honey, you probably should have just let this one go. Because I don't think you can make running out of a Starbucks look tough at all. But he did say that the reason he makes things awkward is because he can't go around assaulting everyone. So, of course, that was a problem. Not just for Trisha, for a lot of people, but Trisha did bring this to light. She showed it all along her platform. She talked about it on Instagram. She went on a huge rant. I'm not sure. I think she took to Twitter as well, and she posted her own YouTube video where she talks about this. She did point out that essentially shining a light on this implication that if Jeff had his way or wouldn't get in trouble or what have you, he would have assaulted her in this Starbucks. But since he couldn't do that, he just made it awkward. Okay. And this kind of continued in an Instagram post by, I think it was Toddy Smith. Yeah, it was Toddy Smith for the Fanjoy / David Dobrik clickbait merch line, their promotion for that. Todd captioned his photo of Jeff kind of play punching him, something like, "He's assaulting me."
So this was the picture. It was from Todd's Instagram. And it's in Fanjoy merch. This was the promo shots for Fanjoy for David Dobrik. It's Jeff like punching Todd or whatever, or like throwing his arms at Todd or whatever. It's like a friend thing, I guess. The caption of it by Todd was, this was right after my video, right? And everyone was making the comments. It says, "He's assaulting me."
Boys of the Vlog Squad, what was going on at that time? You know better. You know better. I love you guys. You know better. Anyway, what I found to be even more concerning probably than Jeff saying that was that he said something, I believe, in that episode about how some of these people, some of these YouTubers out here get to leave a mental hospital and then they still have their platform.
Everybody realizes that somebody is a psychopath and they shouldn't have a platform. They still have their platform, you know, they still have their audience and they still could share their opinion on stuff, and they could be absolutely crazy in a mental institution and they come out and they still have a YouTube channel.
Or something. Which, taking a look at Jeff Wittek's history, I believe I've heard several times on YouTube that he is a convicted felon. And I looked this up briefly and didn't get 100% confirmation. I did get confirmation that he was charged with the felony and that he was convicted of something. And that something did involve I think he says he went to jail for drugs. So I don't know what all was involved, but we know he spent a good bit of time in jail. I want to say a number of years. Alicia in editing, put the amount of time he spent in jail here if we can find that. So it's just interesting that somebody with a criminal past can go and build a platform on YouTube. And not only that, they picked up Jeff's friend from prison and immediately gave him a platform.
What are we doing, Jeff?
We're going to pick up my best friend from jail. He's been away for 4 years. He's rehabilitated. He learned his lesson. What are we actually doing? I'm partially the reason why he's in there. Me and this guy have been through a lot of shit. Like, legit best friends. We grew up together. And he went to jail for a long time and I didn't. And I made it in Hollywood and now I'm famous and rich. And he's in jail.
Hope I don't see you again.
So we can give platforms to guys who are coming out of jail and coming out of prison, but someone who's had mental health struggles to the extent that they needed to be admitted to a hospital negates their right to a platform. Of course, I take issue with that more so than anything. I have a lot more support for the mental health community on YouTube than I do the convicted felon community on YouTube. Not that I think the latter shouldn't have a platform either. Like I said, I like the guy. It doesn't seem like it right now. I do think he deserves a platform just like everyone, but so do the mentally ill and those on some sort of recovery plan. So moving on to October of that year, Trisha had probably her biggest scandal of the year, which was her video coming out as transgender. And it should be noted that that video's thumbnail was a side-by-side comparison of Trisha all done up in glam compared to a photo of her dressed up as Troy Bolton, Zac Efron's character in High School Musical. And in the video, she talks about how she's kind of grappled with her gender identity for years.
I didn't feel like I identified as a girl. Now, this seems like crazy and weird and shocking because I was born a female. And I'm ultra girly now. I'm very girly, right? Because when I was younger, I was teased a lot because they said I looked like a boy. I had a boy haircut. I had, just stuff I couldn't even control.
She says that she, at one point, demanded that her friends refer to her only as T because she was confused. She was trying to figure things out. She also talks about how she is ultra girly, but then at the same time, she doesn't often feel that comfortable in her body or the kind of attention men give her. She does say that oftentimes she wishes she had male parts. And she also pointed out that she often dates, is attracted to, and attracts gay men as part of her support for this decision to come out. She talked about how because she attracts gay men, because she feels like a man, but likes men. She has come out as bi before. I don't know how much she identifies or identified with that at the time, but she primarily dates men, and apparently gay men a good bit. So she felt that she identified as a gay man, but because she loves being ultra femme and wearing hair and makeup to the nines and getting dressed up, she said that she really identifies with kind of the drag community. So she kind of feels like a gay man and a drag queen. She also said that she 1,000% identifies with her natural born gender, but she also 1,000% identifies as a man.
So do I think I'm transgender? Yes, 1,000%. Do I identify with my natural born gender? 1,000%. I'm deceased.
Rightfully so. That is confusing. Not really confusing, it's just contradictory. She received a ton of backlash, as you can imagine, for this video. I think largely because Trisha has been known to troll in the past. Trisha has been known to hustle for views. So, this isn't the first time and this isn't the last time that we see the YouTube audience really shun whatever claim Trisha is making because she has a bad track record. And understandably, people don't believe her anymore. Further, her reasons for feeling this way just seem misinformed. She later came back with an apology video. She did say that she apologized for hurting any one of her fans or audience members, but not for how she feels.
I feel like I should just apologize so people just stop being nasty to me because this is something that's that I've really struggled with. Again, I apologize so deeply if my language was offensive or wrong by saying fully transition and not just you're transgender is transgender, and again I'm not fully educated on it. I just wasn't expecting so much hate, especially from this community that I loved and respected and admired, and just wanted so badly to be included in all of it.
She apologized because, according to her, protecting the feelings of her fans is far more important than her coming out. And in some way or another, she did receive a good bit of support from kind of some of the front runners in the trans community on YouTube. Hello to the one person who is still here, who's watching, who's not me. Thank you so much for watching to this point. Like I said, we thought this was going to be a lengthy series, and it is proving to be even more so than we thought. So do expect part 5 to come. Hopefully, I'm guessing within the next week or so. I want to make sure that I'm making these quality videos for you guys, in addition to the other things that are going on, like the Girlmance podcast that I do with Ambrin of Ambrin's Island. I do want to point out that we are going to be moving the podcast to its own channel. So please subscribe to the Girl Mance podcast channel so that we can have some separation of church and state. And for those of you who may be curious about what's going on, like I alluded to, in my online life, I will be talking a lot more about what's been going on. I've already released a video that addressed something really big that happened with another creator, but as I went through that process, a lot more came up, and this stuff is very serious, and that is why I've been pretty elusive about what's going on. I seem obsessed with a certain topic because there is just something so much bigger going on, and I want to make sure that I am covering that properly and doing it justice and doing right by the people involved. I do realize that this thing is starting to kind of unfold in the public eye, so I would like to speak a little bit more to what's been going on over on the podcast with Ambrin to catch you guys up to speed a little bit and not have everything be just such a mystery for like a month or two on end. So again, please go subscribe to the Girl Mance podcast. I believe the next episode we do will touch on what's going on, at least on Twitter, even though I'm going to do my best to get off of Twitter here as much as possible. That said, if that meant nothing to you, again, you're probably better off without it. But if you want to check out the Girl Mance podcast, by all means, I would love to see you over there. We almost always release the podcast as a live premiere so that we get to chat with you guys as we're discussing these topics. So it's a lot of fun. As for your thoughts on the 2019 Trisha drama, I think it's getting pretty interesting. And we're only halfway through the year of 2019. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, whether that be down in the comments, over on the podcast, anywhere else on the internet where I may encounter you or where you may encounter me. I'd love to know what you think about how it's going and what you'd like to see coming up here soon, aside from Trisha Part 5, which still won't be the end of this series. But in a way, we're kind of having fun here. So I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about that here soon. All right, thanks. Bye. So what happened?